Okie doke. All right. So today we're gonna be trying to do a little bit of practice. First ever practice around casting tournament matches. I'm gonna just ping this into a few Discords and things. So I'm just typing up a little ping. Probably a lot of this is gonna go above people's heads. Above people's heads? That's not what I wanted to say. Probably this is not going to make much sense, is what I wanted to say. But you know. We will see how we do. So I've got the Tribal Trials Day 1 up. I was going to work my way through this. The reason I've chosen this is there was a bit of a focus on one theme, which was kind of drone boats, I'm pretty sure. And also there was a lot of teams in this who were just random and just did random stuff because it's a feeder tournament. So maybe there'll be some more interesting matches. Off the top of my head, I couldn't think of any like super interesting matches just directly myself, so we'll see. Spelling mistakes all over the place. And I'm gonna as well use this video because this is going to be a very long like maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours long video where I just waffle. I'm going to try and use this for editing where I cut down and edit, and I'm also going to try and use it to learn a little bit about how to kind of seamlessly transition a little bit on Twitch. See if we can, because there's going to be two different viewpoints. There's going to be the viewpoint where we're watching the match and we're keeping the overview off a little bit, and then I'm going to do the really basic overview switch of just putting my camera on, and we'll see if we can improve that today a little bit. Maybe go and make ourselves a little scene or something on OBS so that we can switch from the match to a scene where we're talking. I'd really love to understand how you get two video streams of two cams. So obviously I know it's quite obvious how you get the camera for your own computer on, but then how you get a second person from a second location's camera to stream into your stream. Obviously there is a way to do it. It's probably quite straightforward, but we'll have to figure that one out. So we're going to be watching Prismatic Legion versus Shut Up I'm Trying. What we can see so far is I don't know too much about these. Prismatic Legion is a bit of a play on PL, but they are not PL as far as I'm aware, and I don't know anything about Shut Up I'm Trying, although it's a very nice suit. We've got some initial bans. We've got some weird ones from Shut Up I'm Trying, which kind of tells me they're maybe not so experienced. We've got a Nightmare and a Thunderchild. Thunderchild's weird because in a tournament setting you've got 10 ships, and a Thunderchild's maximum DPS starts to apply when it's hitting larger ships for starters, so battle cruisers and battleships, and then it bounces around to about 5 pilots, I think. So you'd need 5 battle cruisers or 5 battleships for it to be doing its DPS. So it's not really a tournament ship that's used. it's also fixed into its damage type. It's also got loads of problems with it's fixed into shield and all these kind of things. The Nightmare, however, is a better ship, in my opinion. It can do single target damage, quite high damage. It gets kind of into the faction battleship damage ranges nicely. It's also quite tanky because it's afterburner bonus, so it can move quite quickly without blooming with a micro warp drive, which kind of you might not think would help with a battleship, but if you can consistently move, you can out-track guns and things like that sometimes with Nightmares, or you can not fully out-track them, but reduce their incoming DPS, so that's quite a good one. Not for tournament setting, it's not a very common ship to bring though, so a strange banning again. And then the Prismatic Legion guys have gone for two more, much more normal bans. So in this tournament, the Eos drone boat was very, very strong. It had very, very strong resistances. The drones were doing a lot of damage. It could do command bursts. And then you've got the Balgon, which is just a beast. You can make it have really long and effective neutralizer, and its NOS also works as a neutralizer. So normally a NOS would only withdraw capacitor from a ship that has more capacitor than the ship you're using. But in this case of a Balgon or any of the Blood Raider ships, they will remove capacitor from ships who have less capacitor themselves. So it means that you can always use the NOS effectively. As long as the ship has some capacitor, it will be taken out. The Balgon also has a bonus to guns, which means that you can fit less guns on it and get better DPS, which means you can get those NOSes on there. So some people will fully fit a Balgon, but more common in my experience is to have a few guns and a few newts, and in the tournament setting. In a open game setting, often Balgons will be fully newt rack fit just to shut down things like capital ships, just really, really power through all of their capacitor reserves. So anyway, we're going to start the match. There's not going to be any sound because the commentators from the actual match commentate, so we want to have a kind of a clean match to go for. Alright, it might take a little bit to start. Let's see if we can skip a little bit forwards to get the teams on the grid. Alright, so we can see the teams on the grid here. So we've got blue and red. I think that red was Prismatic Legion and blue was the guys with the suits. We'll just call them the suit guys because I can't remember their name already. That's a good start. And we've got Double Barghest, Scimitar, Rook, Oracle, Stork, Keris. So this is, first of all, we know it's a shield comp, which I think everyone would have figured out straight away. They've started out at range, and then you've got, so they're going to be probably trying to kite out those Barghests, known as kind of a attempt at a kiting battleship. And then we've got the red team, which I think is Prismatic. Yeah, they got the Balgon here, so that is Prismatic. They've gone for a much more armor brawl setup. So they've got a Vindicator, a Megaphron, Navy Megaphron, a Navy Brutix, a Brutix, a Navy Executor, Vexor, Navy Issue, Enyo, Vexor, Manticore, and Nemesis. So they've actually not got a logistics ship at all. They're just complete full damage. The aim of the game for them is to lock down the high damage targets from the enemy team and kill them as soon as possible, or grab the logistics ship and kill that. Because once they grab the logistics ship, if they can kill that quickly, then the advantage swings into their favour because their composition is designed to not have a logistics ship. What we might see is we might see Logi drones on their side to complement not having logistics, so they might throw Logi drones on their battleships. And those two battleships are the highest DPS you can get for battleships in theory, so on paper. So blaster boats are always highest DPS, but only if you can get really, really close and you are applying into a ship that doesn't have really good resistances against the main blaster damage type, which is kinetic and thermal. So the match is going to be starting shortly. The blue team, to talk a little bit about them, the Barghests have got relatively good range control. They have bonuses to their scrambler, but you can't, unless you have a flagship in a tournament setting, you can't fit anything other than a Tech 2. So their bonus is good, but it's only applying to a Tech 2 module, so it's not going to be quite as amazing as they might want. We've got 15 seconds before we start. You've got the Rook, who I believe is good for dumps. I'd have to check that. The Oracle is a typically high DPS glass cannon. Stalk is probably for command boosts and maybe a little bit of tackle, and the Keres is for damps and maybe tackle. So straight off the bat, we can see the command bursts were a little bit late from the blue team there. They should be moving away immediately. They're trying to move to the side, and even before they've tried to move, the red team is all over them. So even their smaller ships, which should have been able to get away here, have stalled out. They are not moving particularly quickly. So maybe this is some kind of bait into a tankier setup than we thought it was, but it looks like possibly not. We've got that first Barghest of CJ Oakast. He's tackled. He's got a Scrambler. He's got a Grappler. He's got a Scram. Scram again. Double Scrambler, I forgot. He's got a Web. He is getting repaired by the Logistics Cruiser, and the blue team has decided to go for the Enyo. At this point, there are a load of logistics drones on the Barghest as well, but the amount of DPS coming from these two battleships, the Navy Brutigs, the Brutigs, and the Navy Exeter, is just way too much. The clip of the Barghest, they have a clip type weapon, so it'll fire off a lot of DPS very quickly, and then it has a very long reload. That's fired into the Vexor and killed him, but for that, they've lost a Barghest, which is huge. The points alone are 25 points, so it's 25 points to the red team and 4 to the blue, but the impact on the battlefield, they've lost half their DPS essentially there. These Barghests are the only real damage they've got. The Oracle is going to do damage, but it's very easily dealt with by a lot of ships in this kind of tournament setting. The next thing is the Keres is just getting melted, so the Keres is gone. He's not even tackled, should be able to kite away a little bit, but with the way they're playing this, with all of the DPS from the larger ships hitting the Barghest, the Keres is just an easy side kill that they can't do much about, because they have to put all of their reps from the Scimitar into trying to hold that Barghest up so it can kill another ship, hopefully. It's trying to kill either the Enyo or the Vexor. It's a bit hard to tell, but it's not succeeding. It looks like it's going to go down before that. If you notice, the Rook got in a bit too close there. They switched their damage all to the Rook very, very quickly, and he just popped, because the Rook is a very, very glass cannon-y type ship. It needs to be out kiting. It needs to be away from the damage, and it just wasn't. So it's going to be a bit of a wipe here for Prismatic Legion against the guys who wore the suits, and I can't remember the name, so that's terrible of me. I would probably have that written down on a piece of paper just to make sure I can remember it and do a little bit of prep if I was to do a proper cast, for sure. Oi, oi, Zach. So just the Scimitar and the Stalk. There's no DPS left, so they're done. So they're probably, if they've got any honour, will be getting themselves to the edge of the arena and using the micro jump drives. The micro jump drives can get you a little bit further out of the arena, or they're just going to get caught. So the Scimitar's caught. Looks like the Stalk's getting neutered, so he's going to not be for long for this world as well. So Pengo 1998, it's a valid attempt. Welcome to tournament life, guys. You fly a kitey comp, you've got to kite away. You've got to have a lot more control to block things off, and you can't just fly two Barghests and focus your whole composition around two Barghests doing a lot of damage, because as we can see here, even with just the local reps and the rep bots, the Vexor Navy Issue and the Enyo were able to just stay alive even against a single Barghest. So you do need something that's going to be able to stop you just getting completely bowled over by a rush team. Is a situation where these are pretty much counters. The kite composition that would maybe work a bit better against this would be lots of cruisers and battle cruisers, just to stay ahead of the DPS ball. And the other thing you can do with these DPS balls is sacrifice a few smaller tackle ships to just hold down those battleships away from the main fight, which forces the DPS group to go for smaller ships first, and it allows your kiting long range ships to apply for longer before they get caught. So maybe if you can hold those battleships away from your Barghests to start with, then you have a chance to kill a few of the support ships, which are the ones going to try and hold down your Barghests before the DPS lands on your Barghests, and then maybe you can out-kite, but you've got to make those right calls at the start, otherwise you do just get rolled over like that. Alright, there's going to be a load of adverts, I think. The Alliance Tournament adverts, we can skip through them, as we've not got the sound. I don't know what this is. This is like loads of drawing. Tech issues. They couldn't get their screen to work. Alright. So there's not a lot to say about that one. It felt very much like an experienced tournament team who are maybe. When I see rushes, I think it's a judgment call from the captains. But if you know that you're flying against an inexperienced team, a rush comp can be quite brutal. Against experienced teams with proper setups, you can beat rush comps, and it does happen quite quickly. Once you lose a few of your high DPS ships in a rush comp, it's kind of over. Or if you lose all of your support ships, it's kind of over. If they can just keep away from those Vindicators and things like that, then there's not much that's going to happen there. Let's just get a little bit of water on board. Oh yeah, we said we were going to do a transition. We're literally just going to turn the camera on for a little bit. So I don't know if anyone is really watching the stream yet. I've just been talking to myself for a little bit, which is fine. This is kind of what this is going to be. It's not going to be the most exciting stream in the world. Easily got this. I'm guessing sound has stayed good. The settings are still the same as far as I can tell, so we shouldn't have any sound issues today. That was a relatively interesting match to cast. I think if you were duo casting that one, you could have a little bit of fun with it, and you could, you know, kind of bounce off each other a little bit. Entertainment value wise and kind of hardcore Eve wise, it's not that interesting because it's just a rush comp catching a kiting comp and destroying them as they should do. Next up we got Hull Control versus Bright Side of Death. Now Hull Control are a corporation / alliance who are very active in Eve. They roll their wormhole and they pop into a lot of nullsec space, so a lot of the major nullsec groups will know Hull Control. They often come out in ESS compositions and fight us in the ESS, or they do a little bit of kitey stuff or put a few bubbles up and try and do a bit of gate camping to draw out a fight. As far as these groups go, Hull Control, in my experience, are not overly tryhard. They often just have fun with it. They're happy to go after you in lower end Tech 2 ships and things like that, which is very respectable. Bright Side of Death, I don't know anything about. I've heard the name before, so a little bit of research again. It's a bit difficult for this stream to do too much research on these teams, because I'm just needing to just dive in and get my feet wet, I think, with the casting side of things. So I didn't want to fall into the trap of preparing really hard for the first time I do this. I wanted to just see where I sit and go from there. So let's, oh gosh, that was a bit of a big skip. I think CCP on it, because it's the first day of the trials, I think they had a bit of difficulty with their transitions and their background guys. So I think some of these happen quite quickly. Like, for example, this one, we don't get to see the bands and they just go in. It just starts. So let's see. Can we press play? Alright, so yeah, it does just go straight in. I'm just going to pause it because I think this match starts really, really quickly. So looking at this setup, you've got I can't really tell what it is, but you've got a battlecruiser right in the middle here, which I'm guessing is Sleipnir. In fact, we can figure this out because there's no battlecruisers here, so this must be a Sleipnir. The Varga also must be in here. So they've got 3 heavy DPS ships right on the button, whereas Bright Side of Death have gone for the similar idea. So it looks like it's going to be a double rush comp. So this is going to be really interesting. So it's double rush. They're both shield comps. The reason why that's happened may have been because of the bans. We can see the Gila and the Eos were banned, so no drone boats really. And the Brawly comps, the Vindicator, the Balgorn, they're out. And then both teams have banned the Barghest. So you've kind of lost a lot of the ships for the other main compositions that are happening. So it's kind of pushing everyone into this DPS race situation. They do have Logi, so you've got a Tech 2 frigate and a Tech 2 frigate. And then you've got the Burst, Tech 1 frigate and Tech 1 frigate. So this side have got more points into their damaged ships, and this side have got slightly more points into their logistics ships. The blue side, Bright Side of Death, have gone with maybe a little bit more control in the middle, in the kind of cruiser area, and then it looks like Hold Control have put their control ships, the Maulus and the Griffin, into the lower end ships, the frigates. They have started those ships right on the button as well, maybe 10 kilometers back, 20 kilometers back. So whether or not that was a mistake and they're just going to get destroyed, or whether they actually make any difference at all at this kind of range. A damp Maulus might not be very useful if everyone's at 0 range, but the Griffin could land a jam and could make a difference. So, can I tell you a little bit about the teams themselves? I don't know anything about the teams. I know a little bit about Hold Control. I know they're a wormhole group who come and raid. I don't know anything about Brightside of Death. Uzama Buzzers, hello. I know they're blue and red. So, you know, there you go, blue and red. Let's pop the camera off for you. Need to brush up on that intel, I know, right? I know, terrible. Alright, let's see what's going on. So, they did have a 30-second warm-up. It just looks like it kicked off straight away because they're right in there. I'm completely wrong about the Maulus and Griffin, by the way. They are out of range, so that is correct. And the blue team are all together, which is what you would do with their composition as well. I think this is going to be very quick. I think we're going to see target decisions. I think for me, I would go for probably trying to knock out a Sleipnir if I was Brightside of Death. And if I was Hold Control, I would 100% try and knock out their Sleipnir or their Loki. They're actually going to go onto small stuff first. They've grabbed the Sveeple, it looks like, which is a strange choice. I was right about the Sleipnir, so the Sleipnir is getting absolutely punished. The DPS is landing from Brightside of Death, and it's not from Hold Control, which is very interesting. So Hold Control do have DPS very close to Brightside of Death, with the Sleipnir and the Varga, but they're not managing to apply that. That Sveeple has finally gone down. I think that might have been a bit of a misplay at the start there, which is not an uncommon misplay in rush comps, is to try and get rid of support ships. It does work sometimes, but sometimes you do just have to do the DPS race. Okay, the second Sleipnir is now going down, so each of those Sleipnirs is going to be 800 to 1000 DPS easily in hail. They do links, so they're the only boats in the red team who can do links. So if you get rid of both of them, you just automatically removed 20% of the resistances of the enemy's shields. So that's a huge benefit. Well, that Sleipnir is holding now, so it may be that we've seen a clip situation. So the Nighthawk potentially, probably doesn't though. The Stabber fleet's going down. So will it pay off to go for that support wing first? Now the second Sleipnir's down. They've got 2 Navy Ospreys and a Varga left for mainline DPS. So they don't. It's not insignificant the amount of DPS they've got, but they're really not holding at all here. That third DPS ship, the Navy Osprey, he's right in the middle of the brawl for some reason. I don't really know why you would need a Navy Osprey in the middle there, but he is also getting churned and he's gone. I think this might be over for Hold Control. I don't think the Varga is really doing what they expected it to. In the tournament setting for this tournament, the Varga is not allowed to use its Bastion, so you lose a lot of its bonuses there. So it becomes basically a very beefy Tech 2 battleship with autocannons. You can out-track a Varga's autocannons at close range. With something like a Nighthawk or a Claymore or a Sleipnir, that's probably not going to happen. You'd have to get very, very close. But for the smaller ships, that is a relatively realistic proposition. So once they've got rid of everything else at this point, I think the Varga is not going to be too much of an issue. Also worth noting is the support ships on Brightside of Death have just stopped dying. Whether or not there was light missiles from the Navy Ospreys and they were what was killing off the support ships, that could well have been the case. Again, I think that would have been a slight misplay. I think teams sometimes get a bit confused. They go for a full damage comp and then they forget to... They try and split up into kind of anti-tackle and things like that. What you want in a full damage comp is to just punch the core out of the enemy team and then deal with whatever's left, because they're not going to kill you quickly after you've killed all of their DPS. There goes the Varga. He didn't tank well at all, actually. So a bit disappointing really from Hold Control there. That could have been a much closer match, I think. I think if they'd really focused into that Sleipnir at the start, they only had to break through Tech 1 Logi frigates, repping it, which they do work, but not enough. I think maybe putting one Navy Osprey onto the burst just to keep a bit of pressure on it, and split the reps maybe, and then everything else humanly possible, you just jam it into the Sleipnir. The cameraman's doing an awful job. We have no idea what's going on because everyone's flying up, chasing something, and we can't see it. Which seems to be a bit of a theme in some of the casts. There we go. Fix the camera a little bit. And we're just cleaning up now. So there's a Stormbringer and the Maulers to grab. Stormbringers are basically there to kill logistics drones in this situation and maybe apply a bit of random DPS. I mean, you can see, looking at Bright Side of Death, that Stormbringer was shooting into that ball of ships and it's not scratched really any of the shields, and it's probably hit every single one of those ships at least once. So it's really not something that works very well in the tournament setting as far as I've seen. In longer matches, when you are dealing with lots of logistics drones, it can be useful. It can be nice to get rid of all of that extra rep power. But yeah, in this fight today, the Stormbringer's not done well. He has killed all the drones, so he got him. He's going to try and use the micro jump drive here just to keep himself alive. Maybe he's particularly attached to this Stormbringer. It was one that his father gave him or something. But no, he's got caught by the broadsword. Broadsword's got a lovely long scrambler range. And once that broadsword's got you with the scrambler, you cannot use the micro jump drive. You can't use a micro warp drive. You are toasted. And he's about to find out what a Nighthawk, a Claymore, a Sleipnir, a Loki, a broadsword, and a Scythe Fleet issue do when they decide they don't like you anymore. Here he goes. If you look at the defense bar from Bright Side of Death as well, they have got such a huge HP pool by bringing that selection of battle cruisers and very tanky cruisers. So the Loki and the Broadsword are two of the tankiest cruisers you can bring into a tournament. The Scythe Fleet issue and the Stabber Fleet are both very agile, relatively tanky ships as well. So and the Sveeple is a very tanky shield destroyer for what it is. So, and it also, the Sveeple pumps out a good respectable amount of DPS, and one of the most important things is that its DPS can apply at about 10 kilometers. Even if you're artillery or autocannons, the Sveeple still has a good application range. So all of that DPS is going to land. And then potentially what you've had there is that the Varga and the Sleipnirs for some reason just weren't landing DPS. Or they've chosen to shoot the wrong things. I think they've chosen the wrong targets really there. I think that could have been a much closer match, much more interesting. Just skipping forwards. The casters there have a little chat about that. I think really we covered it all again though. A lot of the tournament matches are relatively one-sided. If you can get the right composition versus the enemy, or if the enemy makes an early mistake, the match will just completely tip in your favour, and it becomes quite an uphill situation for the enemy team. It's a very fast way of PvP. I just have a bit of water. Welcome back, Smelly Orc. Kill. Alright. So I do know a little bit about both of these teams. So, let's turn the camera off for a little bit. This is High-Sec Miners versus Electus Metari. So, Electus Metari is one of the Minmatar Faction Warfare Corps, and they have been around for a while. And they're integral in keeping the Minmatar Faction Warfare going. They do public fleets, they provide logistics, and just generally they're kind of an old school group of players who try and be positive and enjoy the game. High-Sec Miners, I think they are legitimately what they say they are. They're like a high-sec alliance, or they're a ganking alliance. I'm not 100% sure. Halos reduce Sig, so high grade Halos would be the best Sig reduction you can get. The reason I know that is Epsilon's Succubus video the other day. He used a high grade Halo set rather than a high grade Crystal set, because he said that the Crystal set was making him fully rep over, whereas if he didn't take them, he took the Halos, he would take less damage. His reps would then apply better, so it was just more efficient. All right, let's have a look. So we have got Hull Control versus Bright Side of Death. Hull Control have already lost today, and I think they've had to play straight. No, this is not. So they've updated this wrong again. So this is actually High-Sec Miners versus Electus Metari. I think Electus Metari is blue and High-Sec Miners are red. What we're looking at here is both teams have done their bans. We've got a ban of the Aneros, which is a armor logistics cruiser Tech 2, and the Nighthawk, which is a Tech 2 shield battle cruiser. So they don't want to see armor and they don't want to see shield brawls. It's a bit confusing, but they basically banned out 2 brawling fleets. And if you look at what they've got, they've gone for a more of a kiting comp. So High-Sec Miners have gone for Typhoons, Ashimu, Stabber Fleet. It's a weird kiting comp, but maybe it's a kiting comp. It could just be that they're going for the huge DPS clips that you get from the rapid heavy missile launchers. They can fit 3 sets of those. And then you've got the Curse and the Loki. The Curse is a very effective neutralizing and weapon disrupting boat, and the Loki can be used for tackle, and it can be used for like a midline DPS ship as well, and it can also have links. So they've kind of gone for getting rid of 2 of those options. Straight away we're seeing High-Sec Miners are going for a rush approach. They don't... Yep, they're just going to dive in. Their Hugin's going to stay back a little bit. And the Sleipnir looks like it might be tackled down. So the Sleipnir is being held away from the fight, which is really, really clever from Electus Metari, but it's not actually working out on paper for them. So they are getting smashed, but they are... Yeah, and they're a shield comp. So the Typhoon losing all of its shields straight away means that High-Sec Miners are applying a decent amount of damage to this Typhoon. In response, Electus Metari seem to be a bit confused. They're applying a little bit of DPS to the Sleipnir, a little bit of DPS to the Sveeple. Looks like they're going to focus down both at the same time. Electus Metari are going for a Fleet Vigil, which is a webbing ship. So trying to get rid of a little bit of that control. Sorry, they're losing their Fleet Vigil, which is a webbing ship. The Sveeple's down and the Sleipnir's down. So this Typhoon has managed to survive. Now, there may be a huge ball of drones on it. Let's have a quick look. So looking at the blue side of Electus, is this the right way around? It's a bit confusing, but I think it is. There are drones zooming around, but they look like they're mostly going for offensive drones, Electus. That Typhoon survived, though, which is all that matters. High-Sec Miners have decided to switch off. They're going for the Logi now, so they've killed the Thalia, which is a Logi Tech 2 frigate. In response, Electus Metari have just absolutely annihilated that Sci-Fleet issue of Zadilamia, sorry. And they've got the second one as well, fully tackled down. It's going at 30 meters per second. He's not long for this world. This Scimitar is trying, but if you are in this kind of comp where you've got these very fragile Sci-Fleet issues in regard to the amount of DPS coming in, and they get fully tackled like this, they're just not going to last. You really needed to, with this much anti-tackle, they really needed to make a big dent in the anti-tackle wing. So actually choosing that Typhoon, again it's target choice, but choosing a Typhoon where you don't have anti-battleship level DPS is a huge mistake. You need to clear out the midline as fast as you humanly can. I think again on paper this could have been a relatively even match, but it looks like Electus Metari are running away with it with correct target choice. Just annihilating a Sleipnir at the start, keeping it away from the fight, so it didn't even apply any of its big damage. So High-Sec Miners a little bit late are starting to switch to support ships. They're trying to get rid of that second logistics frigate, the Deacon. He's going down. I'm completely wrong. The Thalia and the Deacon are the armor ships. So this is an armor comp. So that Typhoon was never really in danger from Electus Matari. So I take that back. Pretty much game over at this point. Hugin and Jackdaw left. It's going to try and get a little bit of revenge, try and kill that Vigil Fleet issue before he dies, but looks like he's not going to make it. Pretty convincing win there from Electus Matari, which is what we would expect. They're not new to this format. They know what they're doing, and they work well together. So they proved that. They picked apart the Highsec Miners team very, very quickly. They didn't even have to rush in. They just sat back and they came to them and just killed them one by one. It's a pretty good example of how to deal with a rush comp. You separate them out a little bit and you kill off the important ships as quick as you possibly can. And so we're getting a little bit of an advert there with the Rifter toy. The Band of Heart. Not a bad one. So I'm going to move straight into, this is my fourth one of the day, but we're going to have a little pause to talk about them. So Ushra Khan are the oldest alliance in the game, according to them, but I think they are actually officially the oldest alliance in the game. Again, a Minmatar alliance. There are a lot of Minmatar alliance in this tribal liberation tournament, which is no surprise, against Turbo Fido Glory, who are, I believe, I think these guys are specifically a tournament team, that name. Well, we can have a quick look on the Zkill. Let's see. Turbo Feed or Glory. No, they are very active. Looks like they do little roams out. They die quite a lot. They're in wormhole space. Yeah, so these guys are a wormhole space group who come out and try and mess with nullsec and sometimes get killed for it. So typically with the wormhole space alliances, they don't really perform that well in the alliance tournaments. I think maybe because you just don't have as big a pool of players in a wormhole corporation. So you don't have as many people to pull on to do the practices and to do the consistency. And also it's such a specialized gameplay that they are quite busy, whereas the larger groups like the nullsec groups and the lowsec groups, they don't really have as many commitments in game, so there's less things to distract them. And because their overall group is bigger, they can kind of just disappear and do alliance tournament stuff for a while. And then you've got the very dedicated alliance tournament teams who literally, they don't do anything on the main server and they will literally log in just for alliance tournaments, so they obviously don't have any problems there. Looking at these comps and at the bans, we've got Ushra Khan on the left there, the red team. They've banned the Hugin, the Hyena and the Barghest. And you can see the Turbo Fido Glory. They've also banned the Barghest, so that means that explains why there's 3 bans. They've gone for the Gila and the Scimitar. So both teams really don't want to see, again, kind of kitey. They don't want to see drone boats. They want to get, Ushra Khan in particular, want to get rid of a lot of control. And if you can see, their team isn't a kiting team, it's an armor team. But that level of control that they wanted to get rid of means that they can slowly make their way towards the enemy team and stay within gun range. Whereas if there was a lot of control from the enemy team, they might be pulled apart as an armor composition, which is by default slower. We're going to see them go up against Turbo Fido Glory, who have set up in a very kitey composition, but they've put their 2 battle cruisers at the front. So they've got the Nighthawk and the Sleipnir relatively close to the armor comp. The Loke and the Onyx are just behind that with a wing of support ships, and then it looks like they're going to use a Cerberus and a Jackdaw as very long range, and that Sveepor is maybe going to be doing some kind of E-War as well. So let's get playing. The support wing from Ushra Khan is relatively thin. It's 2 Logi frigates with a Tech 2 Sentinel frigate, which is a damp frigate. No, Sentinels are... I think Sentinels are newts. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. And then they've got a Rupture in the Ball, and what else is up there? They got Thalia, Pontifex. So the Pontifex is up there. So I think the burst from the Pontifex can reach the main group if he stays up there, and he's probably going to function as a little bit of a screen to try and keep those Logi alive. The Sentinel may be doing a similar job. So that's Sveepor. Potentially he was a screen as well, but he's coming straight in The blue team are just rushing in. Turbo Field Glory are going to go for the DPS race straight off the bat. They've decided that they can kill a Scythe Fleet issue very quickly. And let's see as he goes into armor. Will this be a bit of a surprise for them that he's in armor? Not be able to break him? They need to break him before their Nighthawk goes down, because a Nighthawk is a much bigger kill than a Scythe Fleet issue. But it looks like it's going to be about even. Yeah, so even if it's slightly off and they get the Nighthawk just afterwards, this is going to be a slightly bad trade. The Turbo Field Glory guys don't have a lot of good options. Do you want to put damage into battleships, or do you want to put it into cruisers? That's all they've got. They haven't got this option to kill off medium level ships. And it's really a question of whether Ushra Khan can keep the progress going on those medium ships and keep getting rid of them. So the Stabber Fleet issue's gone as well for not a lot of trade there. Sleipnir is webbed, but he's not scrammed. It's just a web so far. So whether he can just wiggle away and get a bit of transversal going, get a bit of... It will be missile ship, so he wants a bit of transversal on the Balgon, but probably just wants a bit of speed just to reduce the incoming damage. They have got very good target painting going on. On the outside of the fight, you can see the Cerberus here is picking off smaller ships. So he's chasing around the side, trying to not get tackled himself, but he is applying his what looks like rapid light missiles into the Logi frigates. All of the cruisers are gone now for Ushra Khan, so they've really got to punch through this Sleipnir. Got to get rid of this Sleipnir, so that those battleships can then be the dominant DPS left on grid. The attack bars are really low from both sides. You can see the Sleipnir is being disrupted for its tracking, so he may not be applying quite as well. And the Fleet Tempest is also having its guns disrupted. The Fleet Typhoon is having its missiles disrupted, and the Cerberus is having its missiles disrupted. So there's an awful lot of disruption going on. There are jams as well. So jams are landing on the Scalpel, Kirin, and the Sveepel. Looks like they're multi-spectrum jams, which is sometimes not the best thing to do. You do get you have a large reduction in the amount that you can jam a ship when you use a multi-spectrums, as opposed to using a focused ECM script that works specifically against that ship. We just saw the Sleipnir go down of Grigori, and the Typhoon of 40 Winks is next. 40 Winks is a really well-known player in the Faction Warfare Minmatar community. Often will come in with a very expensive battleship to try and save you or start a big fight. So very entertaining player to fly around. Looks like he's just about holding on. There's not an awful lot of DPS left for Turbo Field Glory, but if they could get rid of get rid of this battleship and then maybe kill the support wing, then they really just have to be able to survive the DPS of a Balgon and a Fleet Tempest, which is very doable. The Fleet Typhoon is the best applicable damage, so the missiles are going to hit. They might not do full damage, but they are going to hit every single time, whereas the Balgon's lasers and the Tempest's missiles, they may just get into a position where they can't hold ships down and they can't track, and at that point you're not doing any damage. They are going to look like they're going to push through this Loki. Is the Typhoon going to die first? That Typhoon is on an absolute sliver of health. This is ridiculous. If they can keep that Typhoon up, I mean, the Loki's gone. Has the Typhoon gone? Or is he going to live? Oh, the Typhoon is just gone. I can only assume, looking at the drones, that that is a huge ball of logistics drones. If you look around the red ships, there are red drones. And if you look around the blue ships, there are also red drones. And there are basically no blue drones, because all of their larger ships are already gone. Oh, the Thalia got caught and died there. The Onyx is now being caught. It's basically right next to the battleships. I mean, it's a situation of where the Onyx is probably doing its job of just holding on to battleships. So he's less than he's getting caught, but we can see the Fleet Tempest is going about 400 meters per second. I think he got a squeeze of his micro warp drive off, and the Onyx is stuck at 35. So the Fleet Tempest did actually make a little bit of range there, about 10 kilometers, which might not seem like much, but it's a little bit just to wiggle away. Onyx is dead anyway, and it looks like Turbo Field Glory are in a little bit of trouble here. Very, very even match though. They were punching backwards and forwards the whole way through that match. Just a little bit of spread DPS now. Pontifex got hit a little bit. The Deacon's getting hit. Turbo Field Gloria going to have their Stabber Fleet issue go down next. He stayed within range. He's typically a gunship, so he has to stay within about 15 kilometers range to apply, so he doesn't really have choice. He's got Balgorn newts on him. He's probably neuted out. Cruisers don't have enough capacitor to survive getting hit by the heavy newts of a Balgorn. So even though he's a gunship and he doesn't need newt for his guns, he does need newt to do literally everything else. He does need capacitor to do literally everything else. They jam the radar. That Deacon doesn't want to die. He's refusing. Has he got a drone ball on him? Yes. So you can see the Deacon with the 4 red drones on him. 8 red drones on him. He's got a pretty decent logistics drone ball on him. You've got jamming drones is what we were seeing there. So those jams were a load of jamming drones from the Ushra Khan guys. Now, they only last for short amounts of time, those jamming drones, but even so, if they can just get 1 or 2 jam cycles off, it just completely resets the DPS. And when you're having a DPS race like this, just that little breather is enough for your logistics drones to just pop you back up. And if the enemy team don't have that breather, well, they're going to die first. And that's what matters. It doesn't matter long term, it matters having your ships on grid and hitting the enemy team in the face. Ushra Khan, dominant at this point. Scalpels, Kyrians, Jackdaws left, and Sveeple. Even if they manage to kill off the Sentinel of Ushra Khan, Turbo, Feed, and Glory don't have an answer to how to get rid of the Tempest and the Balgorn. I imagine even with just their local repairs, they will be able to deal with them. And Ushra Khan are just going to steal the Kyrian as well at that point. So really, there's not much that's going to change here. It looks like Ushra Khan are going to take the win. I would expect this to go to time. So there might be a 2-minute little pause. Luckily, we're not live, so we can do a little skip. Whoop. Yeah, so that one did go to time. The Sveeple just orbiting around, and the Ushra Khan guys just sitting happy with their 96 points. Nearly the clean sweep. Very good match, though. That's one to watch, definitely. Takeaways from that? A lot happened, but basically the compositions screwed it up for Turbo Feed or Glory. They had to choose. I don't think they made the wrong choice. They went for the cruisers first. I think that's probably the right choice. But if you're not going to, the option you go for is just try and push through that Typhoon Fleet issue and get rid of it. You can get rid of the Typhoon Fleet issue and then push through potentially either the Logi frigates or the Balgorn. If you can get a lucky misplay from the other team, I think then you're in a good position. I think the cruisers versus maybe your support wing, like if it was the Scythe Fleet issues, the Stabber Fleet issues with their Logi versus the Loki, the Onyx and the Cerberus, I think you win that easily with what you've got left. But you probably don't get to that point if you push through. I think Ushra Khan kind of had that one in the bag just from the start there. We're finally going to get to see the bands. Oh, I'm going to grab a little bit more water. It's amazing how dry your mouth gets. It gets so dry. Constant talking. Newts, yes, fun ships. I mean, yeah. Newts. It's because I said, what did I say? I said that you don't have enough newts to deal with the capacitor or something like that. But what I meant was you don't have enough capacitor to deal with the newts. The newt will take all of your capacitor, and then even if you boost the next time the newt cycles, you're just down again. And if they've got more than one newt, obviously that problem is increased. What people who are flying Balgorns are doing is they'll stagger the newt. So it'll hit you, then the second newt's going to hit you a few seconds later, then the third newt. And that means that even if you are doing something like capacitor transferring or you're using capacitor injectors, you have to time that perfectly and then apply all of your modules, because you know there's another newt going to land on you pretty soon. At the start of matches like this, what you might do if you're the Balgorn is you apply all of your newts at once and just try and completely reduce the capacitor of a ship, and then you stop a few of them and then you go into that stagger. If you keep it where they all cycle at the same time, it leaves a long time period where the enemy could boost their capacitor up and then get to use modules that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to use. So this looks so Scary Wormhole people versus Spectre Fleet. is a good match. I mean, these are both groups who have been in the Alliance tournament several times. Spectre Fleet has been around for a long time, and Scary Wormhole people have as well. Spectre Fleet is the leading not purple shoot it group in EVE. Yeah, luckily if you get a job it's 2 of you. So Spectre Fleet, they do the public fleets basically, and they do lots of fun public fleets all week long. You can see their schedule on their website. Their FCs are generally pretty good, pretty fun to fly with, and they will take fights and do fun things like that. Scary Wormhole people are a Wormhole Alliance who generally stay in wormhole space. They're in the higher end wormholes as far as I'm aware, and they will be doing things like having complicated armor brawls where capacitor management, jams, booshes are very important. It's going to be your 8 Leshaks versus my 8 Leshaks and our 6 Guardians, that kind of thing. So both groups who should have a player base who they can pull from who will be competent for this. Both groups who've never really made it very far in the Alliance tournament either. You can see Scary Wormhole people have played 5-1-1, and Spectre Fleet has played 7-1-3. So Spectre Fleet's coming closer to 50-50, whereas Scary Wormhole people have been slapped around a little bit. Whether or not they've just had unlucky matchups, nobody knows, apart from probably them. They'll probably tell you quite clearly that everyone they played against was cheating and knew exactly what they were bringing and counter-comped them. But yeah, we shall see. I'd like to get one match that I feel I haven't made a huge blunder on before we stop. And whether that means I tone down the pace and I just carefully choose my words, or whether I just keep going and just kind of get into the flow a bit more. But I think there's been a few blundery kind of words, saying the wrong words today. It might be a lunch break that we need. We don't know. Anyway, let's have a look at this match. So this is Scary Wormhole people versus Spectre Fleet Alliance. We've got initial bans of the Balgorn and the Loki. So we don't want to see that control Balgorn, and we don't want to see the control Loki. Very telling. The Balgorn does have a bonus to the Web Fire as well. Gets very long Web Fire. And so does the Loki. So long webs are not what they want. Spectre Fleet has banned an armor logistics cruiser, the Zamzad, which is very fast and tanky. So very good for keeping away and keeping your team alive for a long time. It also has a spool and can repair more than any other armor ship in the game once it gets to that spool on its weapon. And the Gila, which is a very strong drone boat. So there's 2 different things we can read from Spectre Fleet. I think probably this is just they don't like playing against Zamzads, and they don't like playing against Gila drones with whatever comp they're going to play. I don't think this is particularly that they're trying to control whole comps, because if you did, maybe you would ban both the drone boats, you know? Although there's a little bit of mind games involved with the bans. Sometimes you don't want to telegraph too hard to the other team, or we really, really don't want to face this because it might give them a clue as to what you're going to run. So for example, kiting comps generally don't do very well against kiting drone comps because the drones just consistently apply DPS and do a lot of DPS. So that might be what you were thinking. We had a little bit of a weird graphic there, and then it's gone back to this. They're going to put us in. Put us in the game, CCP video. Let's just skip. So again, they've messed up this was consistent that they couldn't figure out how to change the names. But let's figure out who's who. So Scary Wormhole people is in the red, and Spectre Fleet is in the blue, even though the screen doesn't say that. We've got the Double Tempest Fleet issue Vindicator slightly back, and we've got a whole load of very weak ships, which is interesting. That support wing could be in trouble here. You've got Double Navy Scorpion, Raven, Nighthawk, Caracal. That's a lot of missiles. And look at the red team support wing. The red team support wing know exactly what's going on here. They're going around the big battleships, and they're just going to get into those bombers. Those bombers are the first thing that needs to go. Missiles, unfortunately for Spectre Fleet, are going to do really, really well against their support wing. And also it looks like the Vindicator. So the Vindicator is getting hit by the heavy missiles, and the Purifier and the Hound are getting hit by all of the light missiles. There's also light drones going onto that Purifier, and there's a big drone ball battle going on in the middle. It looks like we've got a lot of blue drones trying to get on top of the Vindicator to try and repair it, but that's not working out for them. The Deacons have started off at the back, and they've had to burn in to try and apply reps to the Vindicator. They are doing so now, and the Raven is going down, but they've lost their Purifier, about to lose their Hound. So that's a fairly big bit of DPS, but an expected loss. The bombers in the Alliance tournament often don't last very long because they don't have much tank. The Raven is going to die before the Vindicator, so this is an armor brawl versus a shield brawl at close range, and that's not going so well for the shield comp right now. The Vindicator's lived, so I mean, at this point you've got to ask, why are those Navy Scorpions, why do they think that they can take this close range fight? Because they could have moved back. One of them did, one of them went in. Very strange decision making there. The support wing from Spectre Fleet is still, as expected, struggling. There's lots of ships taking lots of damage. There's lots of damps out there, so they're hoping to make it so that the Deacons don't have much lock range and they have to get really close to each other, I would expect, which is something you can do with the Logi frigates. By doing that, look, you can see the Deacons are having to burn back in now because the Vindicator is taking damage again, so the Navy Scorpions heavy rapid missiles have reloaded and they're going back into the Vindicator. The Deacons are having to burn back in because they're damped. Try and save him. And this match is stalling out a little bit, but Spectre Fleet look to be in trouble. This Vindicator's getting chunked. The Navy Scorpion is as well. I think we're going to see the Vindicator go down first here. Just going to leave just the two Fleet Tempests left for damage and the Vexor. I wouldn't be surprised if this Vexor is the next thing to die, as well as pretty much all of the support wing, which is now basically at 0 on each team. We can see that the Vindicator is being... Where's he going? Oh, they're just trying to catch up to the scary wormhole people's fleet, and there's not much reason why he wouldn't be able to. He's held again, so those Deacons getting in range and applying reps is just doing wonders for this Vindicator, plus their drone ball. So their logistics drone ball is going up against scary wormhole people's DPS drone ball, and it's winning. Oh, there we go. He just popped. He just took a huge amount of damage again. So it's every time those missiles reload, it looks like he was just taking waves of damage. So they've moved on to the Fleet Tempest. I think they are stuck with the choice of hitting big ships because they feel like they're in the fight now. I think a wiser choice probably would be to just wipe out the support wing at this point. I think if you can hold your Navy Scorpions alive, which it seems they can against the two the two Fleet Tempests, you're going to win this match. You just need to get rid of everything else on the grid, which you should be able to do if you've got missiles and a little bit of tackle. They are themselves losing their Tech 1 logistics frigates, which have been chased down. We've got the Hawk trying to deal with the Vexor. The Burst is, I say, is being chased down. These Tempests can't really track a Burst. That's their big problem. So unless they're going to launch some drones to try and deal with him, there we go. Looks like they've got him now. They've got their target painter on him. Scary wormhole people have stalled again. Looks like they're on their reload cycle. Their attack bar is very small, and they are sitting right on top of each other with the battleships there. So we expect to see that attack bar boost up. Here it goes. These are the rapid heavy missile clips coming in again. Punching into that Tempest. Again, those Deacons are having to pull back in. You see them rush back in to try and rep up the Tempest. Those logistic Deacons are doing a great job. They're under a lot of pressure in this match, and they are doing their best. I don't think they're going to win, unfortunately for them, but they've done an awful lot of work. Something on the Spectre Fleet team has got 4 damps, and I think it might be, I'm not sure really, could be the Vexor. Hard to tell. He's just thrown out damps onto all of the missile ships, some kind of last minute play to hopefully make them not do something, but I don't think that's going to work. I think you need to focus your damps at this point onto something that's far away and just try and cut it off, because everyone's already going to have a lock. Everyone's not going to have a lock speed problem. They're just shooting that Fleet Tempest. That's all they want. They want him dead. Once he's dead, I don't think there's any problems here for them to hold. Again, we can see the drone ball from both sides chewing away at each other. We've got loads of blue logistic drones trying to keep the Fleet Tempest up, and we've got tons of red damage drones. Honestly, at this point, when you're having this much of a problem with logistics drones, switching your damage drones to just annihilating their heavy logistics bots is probably the play. Tempests don't have a great drone bay. They have a battleship sized drone bay, but it's not a huge one. The Vexor has a drone bay that's good, but it's not huge. That kind of thing is what you've got to be thinking about. You can just completely remove that rep power. Those Tempests are going to die a lot quicker. You don't want to do the mistake of swapping your heavy missiles though. It's just, if you've got a few spare sets of light drones that are out, you might as well get them killing the logistics drones. It's going to make a bigger difference for you. Also the Caracals, the Hawks, the Hookbills, they could make very short work of a logistics wing. It would take them literally a few cycles to kill a logistics drones. So there is a counterplay there where you just wipe out the logistics drone's wing, and at that point you've taken a big chunk. They've still got the Deacons, but you've taken a big chunk of their DPS out of the, not the DPS, of the repair power out. Oh, we've been streaming for an hour now. I don't think we're going to see this Navy Scorpion break. Scary Wormhole people have got a huge points lead. Even without their logistics, they're holding. I don't think the Tempest can apply well to any of the cruisers. I would have hoped it would have tried, but the cruisers, you'll notice, are out at a nice comfortable range. One of them did just get scrammed, so what we know now is that the Vexor has got Scram Web. He's scramming down a Caracal, trying to hold it down, and in return he's getting annihilated, because that would be an issue, as if the Fleet Tempest could somehow claw its way back with these Deacons and a little bit of tackle and slowly kill the support wing of Scary Wormhole people. They might be able to get back into the points, but with a minute and a half just over left, they're probably not going to have enough time to pull off anything crazy like that. And as we can see, their support ships are slowly going down. The Vexor's down, the Deacon's next. Gideon, Zendikar and the Deacon bound into structure. He's still moving relatively speedily, but he is getting hit by missiles, so he's going down. I would imagine that the next target is going to be Hayuk in the Deacon. He's getting neutralized. He's still chugging along. No, Gideon has survived. He's managed to make warp drive away. There's not an awful lot of tackle in the Scary Wormhole people's midline, it seems. It seems like the Navy Scorpions are the things that were really holding on and applying damage. Or potentially they've not got an awful lot of tackle at all if they were hoping to maybe do some kind of kiting. With these Deacons, if they do run away like that, that's great for them personally, but they have a really small rep range. It's about, best case, 20 kilometers, I believe. So if you run away, you have to then come back if you do survive. So you're just delaying the inevitable a little bit, and the objective of pushing the Deacons away is to the objective of killing them is to stop them repping, and if you can achieve that just by pushing them away, then it's the same thing. There you go, both the Deacons are down now. Once one goes, the other goes quite quickly usually. Tempest Fleet Issues managed to get himself to the beacon and jump out, so he's gone for a little suicide trip. Now Magus is going to do the same, try and get as far out as they can, try and win that prize for the furthest ship outside of the arena. And the Pontifex is going to get killed before he makes it to the beacon, I believe. So an honourable end for Spectre Fleet there after quite a good fight. I think they did as best as they could. Alright, that's that. 100 to 21. I think I'm going to go for a little break. I'm going to see if I've got my... Have I got scene 2? There you go. So yeah. Wow, that rotates super fast. I thought let's just mess with this a little bit. Oh, sorry about that. Should we slow that down even more?